Episode 0. They were doubted, but never defeated. They said he was too small for the pros, said she was too fragile for competition, said he'd never be more than a bench warmer. And yet, here we are, decades later, still telling their stories. Some names arrive in the world of sports like a thunderclap, loud, electric, impossible to ignore. They're the first pick, the media darling, the star before they've ever laced up their cleats. But not all legends start that way. Some slip in through the back door. Some begin in silence, with no camera flash, no applause, only the sound of their own footsteps against the odds. This series is for them, the ones who weren't supposed to matter, the ones who were cut from tryouts, who sat through draft nights without hearing their name, who walked into locker rooms as unknowns and walked out with history behind them. Legends they doubted, but never defeated, is not just a collection of sports stories. It's a tribute to grit, to quiet courage, to those who didn't come in with fanfare, but left with respect carved in time. Over the course of 6 slow-burning, heart-centered episodes, we're going to revisit athletes whose names may not always top highlight reels, but whose journeys linger long after the final whistle. We'll begin where dreams often rise and fall, with football. On fields where inches mean everything, and doubt is a constant companion. There we'll meet Kurt Warner, who was stacking grocery shelves in a small-town store before fate called him under the lights of the Super Bowl. We'll watch Joe Montana, calm as still water, slice through defenses with the kind of quiet confidence that only comes from being told, "You'll never make it," too many times. And we'll stand alongside Drew Brees, a quarterback deemed too short, too brittle, too broken, who instead became the beating heart of a city that needed saving. Then we'll step onto the sun-bleached dust of the baseball diamond, not to talk about record books, but about redemption and resistance. We'll sit with the story of Jim Rice, a man whose bat was feared but whose silence made him invisible to the press. We'll look again at Jackie Robinson, not just as a symbol, but as a man who carried a burden none of us can truly imagine. We'll finally listen to the voice of Larry Doby, who broke the same barrier in the American League, but was made to wait decades for the credit he so deeply deserved. And we'll tip our cap to Toni Stone, a woman among men, who stepped into a batter's box not just for herself, but for every girl who was told baseball isn't for her. On the hardwood, the pace quickens, but the silence deepens. There, greatness often goes unspoken. We'll remember Larry Bird, the unassuming kid from French Lick, Indiana, who let his game do the talking, and it spoke volumes. We'll honor Tim Duncan, the quiet general who never sought attention, but led his team to 5 championships through sheer consistency. And we'll stand in reverence before Bill Russell, who won more than anyone, and somehow still had to fight to be recognized. But not all legends come from leagues and locker rooms. Some are born on Olympic tracks, in dusty gyms, on cracked pavement, where there is no spotlight, only drive. We'll revisit Gail Devers, whose legs were nearly lost to illness, yet somehow found the strength to win gold on the world's biggest stage. We'll follow Wilma Rudolph, once a child with polio, later the fastest woman alive. And we'll step into the ring with Rocky Marciano, the son of immigrants, the underdog's underdog, who retired undefeated, not because he was the strongest, but because he simply refused to go down. In one episode, we'll shine light on those who broke barriers no one asked them to break. Kenny Washington, reintegrating the NFL when the league and much of the country wasn't ready. Althea Gibson, swinging her way into the world of tennis long before the Williams sisters could dream it. And Earl Lloyd, who stepped onto the NBA court with grace and quiet courage, knowing he wasn't just playing for himself. And then, in our final chapter, we'll take a moment to breathe, to reflect, to honor those whose greatness was never about numbers, but about integrity. We'll sit with Joe Dumars, the consummate professional, Steve Largent, the steady hands and steady heart, Frank Gore, who never led the league in drama, but outlasted nearly everyone, John Stockton, the pass-first guard who never asked for praise, and Roberto Clemente, whose final act wasn't a swing of the bat, but a gesture of selfless love. These are the stories we'll tell, Not the loudest stories, not the flashiest, but the ones that stay with you long after the lights go down and the noise fades. Because sometimes greatness doesn't enter with a roar. It enters with a whisper, a moment, a decision to keep going when no one believes in you but yourself. Maybe these names mean something to you. Maybe they remind you of someone you once cheered for, someone who never made the headlines but always gave their all. Maybe they remind you of yourself. In episode 1, we begin this journey on the football field, where too old, too small, or not good enough are just words, until someone like Kurt Warner proves otherwise. This isn't just a series about sports, it's a series about the human spirit, about rising again and again, about being doubted, but never, ever defeated.